Hey guys, welcome back to Serial at Midnight. You know, we talk a lot about physical media here. I'm very optimistic about physical media as a format, where it is, where it's going. I believe it's going back to a niche collectible format. We've talked about this a million times. It started as a niche collectible format before the big boom, Laserdisc days, VHS, even the early days of DVD. It was a niche collectible format. Now the market's contracted again. It's gone back to that. We have streaming services for most people. That's good enough. For us, for diehards, physical media remains a highly collectible, thriving format. But whenever we have this conversation, the topic turns to Disney, because Disney is they're the elephant. They're the titan, right, that is controlling so many of the assets. And I think a lot of people think that Disney represents, them, the studio, the majority. And Disney's doing a lot of things that aren't great for physical media. Let's be honest about it. They're starting to get back into it. But the big news is that a couple of months ago, and I don't think I've talked about this in a video yet because I was kind of waiting for something like what you're about to see. Disney pulled out of Australia. They said nothing. There was no announcement. Anybody saying Disney said nothing. There was no press release. There was no announcement. I can trace it all back to one news report that quotes sources, as Disney sources say that they're pulling out of the Australian marketplace. I believe Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was the last disc, the new Disney disc that you could pre-order in Australia. So it's been a couple of months as I'm recording this video. It's not like it's been 5 years. It's been a couple of months. But you would think that the end is near, because now every time I make an announcement, every time somebody shares news, but Disney pulled out of Australia, so it's all about to go away, right? It's that same thing. Physical media is dying because Disney pulled out of Australia, right? So I put out a call to the labels that I have a relationship with in Australia. I said, listen, every day with Disney's not in Australia anymore. What does this mean? Umbrella Entertainment answered the call. So you're about to see my conversation with James Keogh from Umbrella Entertainment. I've known James for a few years now. Great guy, really honest, pretty transparent. It's amazing when we can get these guys to go on the record and talk about the health of something in their marketplace, talk about like the role of Disney and like what percentage of the marketplace Disney would actually represent. Listen, boutique, niche, collectible, right? That's what we're talking about here. That's thriving. I'm going to tease just a little bit if you're concerned here. How about month after month, year after year, record profits, continuing growth, not a decline, it's going up, right? So Disney doesn't represent the majority. I've said that to you guys over and over. Now let's hear it from the people that actually make and sell this stuff in Australia. There are also some interesting teases here, some stuff that's coming up from Umbrella Entertainment. Listen, these labels in Australia are putting out world-class releases. In some cases, a lot of these movies are world exclusives. You can only get them anywhere on disc in the world from Australia. So anybody that lives in Australia or is watching Australia thinking that the end is near, the sky is falling, there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. Disney does not represent the entire marketplace. Disney represents Disney. And Disney's going through some pretty interesting changes right now as they try to buy out and dominate streaming. So without further ado, James Keogh, the ops and marketing head at Umbrella Entertainment. But I'm seeing a lot of skepticism about physical media in Australia from Australians, and I thought, well, I should talk to some Australian labels and distributors and people that are actually putting this stuff out. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on the record to talk to me about this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
There's so much going on there, and I don't know that Disney is a representation of the entire Australian marketplace. Is it?
That's a very good question. I think the how distribution or the concept of distribution is changing quite a lot right now. So there's a lot of where it previously or traditionally used to be just a function of you get a movie and you put it on a disc and you put it out to the public. A lot of people are seeing distributors now as kind of taste makers, or they look to distributors to tell them what to watch or to kind of curate their selection. And I think a lot of that's changing with the big studios, where they used to have a big movie at the theaters and then the next stage is put it on a DVD, and then it goes to a retailer, and that's what's changing quite a bit. Um, and I think that retail space is closing, and that might be why Disney is kind of pulling out. They're saying it's too hard. But for a lot of us, I think smaller distributors who still believe in retail, we still have like a web store online, and that curate that online presence. It's still quite strong. And I think our last couple of years, I think in the last 2 years, we've had the biggest, like the strongest month on month records for us selling our releases, both in retail
Really?
and yeah, and online. And I guess where it might where it might be different for the big studios is, they put their movie out in cinemas, and then they can just chuck it up on their own VOD platform, and they don't have to worry about manufacturing, logistics, retail, all that, that entire arm. They just focused on the VOD stuff now. So maybe it was just kind of cutting their losses. But I think when there is a market, there will always be someone who wants to put something out in that market. And players like us in print, and a few others, even Vinegar Syndrome over in the US, they go to studios, and we can take some of the movies that we think are important, and they should be released and put them out. So Vinegar Syndrome did that with Showgirls and Roadhouse. Imprint do it quite often. They just announced their Marlon Brando sets, and
Was that something that you think that umbrella could another company license, you think, from Disney for the Australian marketplace? Is that a possibility? I'm not saying it's going to
um,
happen, but like, is that a model
yeah,
that's possible?
it's hard with Disney. Disney, I think, are really protective of their
Yeah.
IP. So that I think that will be really kind of challenging. That's
And
probably
we
why no
should
one's seeing.
point out too that they're not setting the world on fire in the US either. Like there's a lot of stuff that they don't like they do. Disney's kind of coming back to discs a little bit right now, but it's not like they're just cranking out. I mean, they're responsible for a huge amount of movies being removed from circulation instead of being put out into
Yeah,
circulation. I think people should remember that too. Like, yeah, it's not great if Disney's like, well, we're not going to put out more movies, new releases in Australia, but they're not putting out a lot of stuff in the USA either. It's just Disney being Disney.
mm. I wonder if they just put it in the too hard basket. But I think, when they announced Prey, that kind of set the whole internet on fire, particularly in our
Yeah,
community. Everyone was
yeah.
losing it. Everyone, yeah. And I think that was a really important movie, a really good movie to get out. So I think when the movies that matter, they might still, they might still consider it. But our December releases, we've gotten a few movies from MGM. We still pick up titles here and there from other big studios. I think Vinegar Syndrome, they teased like they're doing a Paramount film. So I still think there's a space for those smaller boutiques to pick up from studios, especially when studios see the value and trust that company as well, or trust
You
that
said
label.
you were talking about the profits too. Like you guys are, it's going up. It's not going down. I want to highlight that because there's so much fear and like literally every day someone says, Heath,
Yeah,
it's dying, right? And I go, no, it's not. You're not going to walk into a retail store and see aisles and aisles of this stuff like you used to, but you will see companies like you guys doing really well done releases that have a lot of, like, I call them bells and whistles for the collector. The collector is not
mm,
everybody. The collector is not like
yeah,
your uncle or your aunt or what. Like it's a smaller audience, but that doesn't mean it's dying. So it's important that you're saying profits, you're seeing profits. You're not seeing a decline. You're seeing things
yeah.
escalating. That I want to highlight that.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And I think it's a good point. I don't know if it's quite the same as the vinyl market or the record market where, it kind of tailed off, but then the collectors market has kept it really, really strong. I think
Yeah.
there's something similar in that space where the 4K market is pretty much all collectors, and that's a full market of itself. You've seen how many movies are coming out on 4K, and it's not cheap to do 4K. It's not cheap to restore 4K, but clearly a lot of players are still seeing the value in it. So I think that just that um, representation of the collector market, they don't see how big they are.
How are you don't I don't want numbers. How is
Mm.
4K doing for you guys? Do you see that as an emerging format? Do you see that as a danger? Like how's 4K for you guys?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's something that we're only been able to do very recently in Australia. It's quite, we use different authoring facilities and replicators where they're not, the replication can't be done in Australia. We have to do that overseas. So it is quite difficult logistically to get it to do it. And we tested that with Razorback and The Last Wave, and then we've got Talk to Me coming up and also Possession. So it's still something we really, really want to do. And we're restoring movies in 4K. We've got a really big Australian film. Probably to me, it's one of the most important Australian films ever made. And we're been in this, at the facility trying to restore that for a better part of a year now, to
Wow.
make that as good as we can. So for us, 4K is very important. I think it's really important to the collector as well. It gives them the best version of the film, um, in the best format, and it just looks incredible. So if you want to be in this kind of in this industry where you want to show films in the best format possible, 4K just makes sense.
I talk sometimes about the importance of supporting. So many people are like, well, I'll wait for it to go on sale. Like, we do what we have to do, right? But you
Yeah.
are directly supporting the growth of an industry. And that's what you're talking about. Like, you guys are, it's grassroots. Like, you're there in Australia putting out these movies that, in a lot of cases, some of the stuff's never been seen outside of Australia. We were talking about that a little bit before we hit record. Like, those
Yeah.
movies that you guys are putting out, I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. Like, a discovery for the whole world outside of Australia. It's just an
Yeah, it
important
is.
time, and you guys are doing you got stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to give a spotlight on one of my favorite. This is the office copy of Sky Pirates, which is this kind of Indiana Jones rip-off from the 80s, that we've restored recently from the vault. Oh, you've got your copy there as
It
well.
just
Yeah.
showed up. I mean, this like just showed up, and I was unboxing it next to my wife. I was like, this is amazing because I've never
Yeah.
seen this before. So, and we should
Yeah.
tell
And I
like I'm
think,
going to tease this a little bit. I just happen to have it here, but I want to tease that it has the I got to get this book out. It's the Indiana Clones Diary, and it's all the different Indiana Jones clones from all the different, like the different countries, and it's amazing stuff. I don't even know if I can I share some of this on, can I hold this up
yeah,
and show this?
absolutely. Go
All
for
right,
it.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, of course, like romancing the stone and all that stuff, but there's a few things in here I'm like, what is that? So that this is like there's a lot of work that goes into these, and I don't know. You guys are doing like you're doing amazing stuff right now, and that's one of the like when the Disney news broke. And again, it wasn't actually news; it was just people reporting on it, like the sky was falling. And I was like, yeah, but look at what's still coming out. Like Disney's not doing this stuff. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
I think, yeah, I'm not quite sure what. So I guess for a Disney movie, for them to kind of justify going into it, I think that they have to sell quite a few numbers. Whereas for us, we've got I think, a very dedicated audience, a very dedicated community, who supports particularly independent film and genre film. And that's the ones who are keeping us, that are enabling us to restore some of these films. And we can do a movie like Sky Pirates. We've got 10, 15 plus restorations currently in the works, with, restoring those in 2 and 4K right now of old Australian genre films from the 80s, 90s, 2000s.
Will you speak to something for me that you just so
Yeah.
people when a 4K restoration is made, but it's only released on Blu-ray, there's a lot of anger about about that. People are like, they're trying to screw us, man. You
Mm.
want to comment on that?
No, I can understand what people would say. Particularly, I think, some places probably time it in a way that they know that they can get someone to double dip. Um, for us, 4K is a huge cost, so we look at it as whether the film will kind of recoup those costs if we release it on 4K. 4K is about 5, 10 times more expensive than putting something out on Blu-ray. Whereas for us, if we want to scan materials, We have to, get in touch with the producer, the filmmaker, their children, if the filmmakers unfortunately passed away. We have to get the materials from the National Film and Sound Archive, which Australia's a big country, in Canberra. We have to coordinate that to go to a scanning facility. It's a lot of work, and to do it twice, if you wanted to do a 2K and then a 4K, can be, it's double that kind of that process. So for us, I think unless it's going to be a big title with that will be known around the world, if it we want to do that on 4K now, and we'll probably do it in 4K with a Blu-ray version with it. And then a lot of these other smaller titles like Sky Pirates will probably only be a Blu-ray.
And you guys always do these. Let's talk a little bit about the website exclusives with the
Yeah,
all the cool extra stuff, because people don't have. That's one of the things that I like about that is that you don't have to do that if you don't want it. If you just want the movie, that's the option as well. But you have choices. You can have, you can put together like the ultimate bundle for yourself through the website.
yeah. I guess what we've found is that a lot of these movies, particularly for the Australian audience, some of them some people grew up with this would be their favorite movie, and they used to see it at the cinema every other week, back in the 80s and 90s, 70s, and I think for us it's about kind of putting together really one of the best releases possible. And if that's your favorite movie, you can get everything about it. So for Sky Pirates, for instance, we used a lot of the original art that was used for the movie for the release and paired that with a whole bunch of information about, the context of why this movie was made, and included that as all part of the bundle.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, those collector editions are really important to us for the fans, and it's something that we will probably do for nearly every release going forward.
One of the things I also wanted to say is that you guys have been doing these combat classics and the six shooter classics, and I don't know how well these do for you guys. I'm not asking you how well they do for you guys, but I do know, and I haven't done my research on these two because, like I said, they just showed up. But there are so many westerns and war films that have only been released on disc by Umbrella, and
Yeah,
I mean, I don't mean like five. I mean like like dozens of these movies have only been released in Australia by you guys. And that's a service right there for anybody that's like, "Oh no, Disney, it's all going away." No. Like it's really it's in a like the Australian boutique scene is awesome. And so I wanted to shout that out because like again, I haven't checked these, but a lot of these westerns and stuff, they're only on, and if they are on disc from
yeah,
anybody else, it's a bootleg. Like you guys have the authorized, like the universal, licensed print or whatever.
yeah. It's a funny. I think they've been going on well before I even
Yeah,
started at Umbrella. The six shooter classic and the
you were
compact
just a
classic,
baby. You were a
right?
wee little thing.
Yeah. There's probably been hundreds, and I think there's just a dedicated couple of thousand people that just really froth these movies. I really froth the old westerns as
Yeah,
well. So and it's just yeah, they're really fun because like you said, you just otherwise you won't really see them unless the best chance you might find them is like one of those TV channels that just has westerns playing all day.
yeah.
Like other than that, they're really hard to find.
I am proud. Like I pride myself on being able to find things because like you can find things in a lot of different places. And when it comes to old movies, there's different places you can look. These like westerns specifically, there are so many of them, and I can't find them anywhere. There was one that I saw. It was on one of those TV channels, and I was like, "What is this movie?" And I was looking for a DVD copy, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I'll tell you what it is after we finish the recording, and you'd be like, "Can you put that out?" But um, it's so cool because some of these movies are legitimately being lost. They're
Mm,
being just forgotten and passed by. So I don't know. I sometimes people are like, Heath, you're too enthusiastic about this stuff, but I really feel gratitude and joy about what's happening, specifically with the boutique scene right now. I'm like, well, if Disney
yeah,
pulls out of Australia, Disney's missing out. That's on Disney. That's not a
yeah,
statement about Australia. That's Disney. So it's a good time.
yeah. Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I think this as we've pivoted probably in the last couple of years towards the more collector, um, the market being more of a collector market, we've seen a lot more people really passionate about what we do. And that's what I meant before about that change in mindsets of what distribution used to be. It used to just be, doesn't matter what movie, you just get it and chuck it out. And that's, I think with that change becoming, leaning into curating the space is what people really, really like to see. And we're seeing lots of people all around the world really, find a lot of love for these lost Australian films, which, is shocking. It
It's
surprises
great
me.
though.
So, yeah,
I feel very fortunate that you guys have worked with me over the years and that we have the relationship that we do because I really do appreciate the work that you guys do on these things. And there is the Australian cinema is unlike anything else. It's so unique. And even like Australian TV shows and things like that.
mm,
There's really nothing else like it. And I enjoy being able to tell other people. And I have a huge Australian audience anyway. Like I think covering this stuff has built my presence in Australia. It's my number
yeah,
four. It's my fourth largest audience, which is crazy, but I love
yeah.
it. So, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time. Was there anything else that you want to talk about, or did you want to show anything before I let you go?
Um, yeah, I guess. Oh, what can I talk about? I might give a shout out to some of my favorite other labels and some of the work that they're doing. So I recently picked up Taxi Hunter by 88 Films. I'm loving these category three like Hong Kong films. They're so funny. They're so like they're camp in their own way. And they're so cheesy. Sometimes I can't believe someone made it, but I'm so glad that I have it in my hands.
That's got a nice slip
I've
cover
got
too. That's got a really
it
sturdy,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that one does. The same for this. I got the Made in Hong Kong, the Vinegar Syndrome release. Absolutely fantastic. And my other absolute grail film I picked up just recently is the Blood and Black Lace 4K from Arrow. It's looking fantastic. So yeah, that's one I'll be watching over and over and over and over again.
I've heard great things about it, but I haven't seen that release yet. I have a
Yeah.
different release, but I heard that that's like one of the best releases of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I might give a plug on some of the other stuff we're working on at the moment. So we've just finished off the kind of Talk to Me theatrical release in Australia. So that was really big for us. It was really great to get an Australian movie out in America that obviously, had a wide release and a wide appeal. And we've got a few kind of genre films coming up soon. One of them's Time Addicts. It's about if you're from Australia, you know that like street essays, but it's about an essays who smoke drugs and go back and forward in time. It's a bit of like a horror comedy. It's fantastic. It's playing at Monster Fest this month, and there was Emu War. It's a little bit like Birdemic. In the same vein, but it's about the one war in Australia, the Emu War. Um, from a couple of hundred years ago, I think. So that's really fun as well.
Nice. That sounds great.
Also, well,
Well,
thanks for letting me join, Heath. It was great to have a chat.
I appreciate you coming on. Stick around. I'll say goodbye to you after we finish recording. But
Yeah,
thank you so much for being on the record talking about the boutique scene in Australia. It's so important that we remind people that like Disney does not represent the entirety of physical media in Australia. They are one aspect of it, and that could change tomorrow. Who knows? So I really appreciate you coming here and talking about Umbrella. And I mean, there's so much to be thankful for and excited about. So I appreciate it.
yeah, no worries. Cheers.